This is Born Strategist, and in this video, I'm going to attempt to provide you guys some helpful tips on how to get the Black Spindle. Now, the Black Spindle is a exotic sniper rifle that's based off the Black Hammer from the Dark Below DLC. But the difference here is that this is an exotic, and it can only be obtained, as of this point in time, via a quest in the Lost in Light story mission. Now, this mission is only available during the daily missions, so remember that. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your time in an attempt to get into this area to unlock the Black Spindle. With that said, remember that getting past most of the enemies and the infantry isn't necessarily the problem. It's going to be getting past the blights and the witches in certain areas leading up to the final boss. Now, the infantry themselves, which is just basically your low level standard taken infantry, really isn't going to pose that much of a problem. The problem is going to be getting to these witches in the tank area where the fallen tank would normally spawn in the Tannic strike. Now, once you get past a lot of the infantry that's in your way, make sure that you do not waste any time and you directly target the witches. Pair up if you have to, because one of the strategies that me and a friend utilized was double teaming the witch. Now, for example, when you're rushing the witch, it's probably best to have someone that has a super and another person has a shotgun, so you can drop their shields pretty quickly. Now, they have void shields, so remember that when taking them down. Now, you don't necessarily have to use a void shotgun or something like that. You could just use the invective. The invective's perfect, just as long as you have enough force to get past the shields anyway. So once the shields are down, then you should be able to hit her as hard as you can with, Stormcaller super or a Sunbreaker super, and that should be enough along with the shotgun. Now, once you're done taking down the witches and the blights within that area, you're going to want to move on to the next section, which is going to be the most problematic simply because there's going to be a shitload of infantry. Now, once you get into that area, don't hesitate with your supers. Activate them immediately. Even if you can't necessarily target the boss character, it's best to do as much damage as humanly possible. Now remember, the boss character is a primary target here. He is the number one thing that you should be focusing on. Now, if you can't get a shot off on him, then don't worry about it. Try to utilize your supers on the infantry, because at the very least you can spawn orbs for your teammates so they can regenerate your supers, and either way it won't be wasted. Now the thing is that if you're going to be utilizing heavy ammo, I strongly suggest that you try to use it on the boss and only use it on infantry when you have to. Now, just because you use your heavy ammo on the infantry doesn't necessarily mean it's wasted, simply because, well, it's going to bump you up a little bit faster so you can get to your super just a little bit quicker. Now, once you get to your super, try to utilize it on the boss character or the infantry, depending on the situation. Don't overexpose yourself and don't take any unnecessary risks, because if you take an unnecessary risk, then it's going to slow you down and you're just going to die. And if you're dead, you really can't help deal damage to the boss character anyway, so stay alive first and foremost. Now, make sure you flank the boss as often as possible so you can distract him. Now, if he's distracted and he has to go back and forth between targets, then he won't throw those annoying black blobs of light. And if you could avoid that, then guess what? You're going to have more time to sustain your fire on the boss character. Now remember, it's imperative to avoid anything that can get in your way. Simply put, you don't want to be overwhelmed by infantry. So if you have to get through the infantry just to get a couple of shots off on the boss character, do it, but do it as quickly as possible. Because once again, your time is not necessarily going to be wasted if you take out some infantry, because it will aid you in recharging your super faster. And remember, supers and rockets are usually the best thing that you can do in this situation. Now, you don't necessarily have to follow my advice. If you have a particular strategy that works for you, then go ahead and use it. Sometimes people like using the exotic sword. Other people like using light machine guns or rocket launchers. But just remember, you don't want to put yourself in a situation to where you could be easily surrounded, or a situation to where you could be out in the open for a long period of time. This usually occurs when you're using something such as an auto rifle or a light machine gun. Simply put, you're going to be firing for a while because you have a high magazine capacity and you have to empty your ammo into them. So it's probably best to use something that has more one-shot kill potential, something like a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher, so that you can deal the max amount of damage possible. Now, once the boss character is down, you're going to want to quickly eradicate the infantry. Now remember, that infantry is going to keep spawning regardless of what you do as long as the boss is alive. Even if you take out the blights, they're still going to keep spawning. So the only reason as to why you want to kill them is to either regenerate your super, produce orbs, or just to get them the hell out of your way. So remember, don't overexpose yourself and don't take too long on the infantry. Kill them quickly and as fast as possible so you can focus on dealing as much damage to the boss character as quickly as possible. Now remember, the biggest problem that you're going to have with the final boss is the fact that the fucker teleports like crazy and has a tendency to hide behind the center structure. If that's the case, try to flank him as often as possible, because the more you flank him, then the less likely he's going to throw those big black blobs of light at you that blind you. So do that as much as possible, because then he kind of gets distracted and goes back and forth between targets and not knowing which to throw at. Just remember that the final area is going to be the most problematic simply because there's so much infantry and the boss character is one hell of a bullet sponge. So remember to prioritize the boss character more so than anything else, but don't allow yourselves to be flanked. With that said, I hope this has been helpful. So until next time, thanks for watching, and for more objective reviews, strategy guides, commentaries, and more, stay tuned to this channel.